Backyard Wildlife Maine here with our Maine Trail Cam compilation for week ending 10/31/25. This first location is called Bennett's Blind because we have a friend of the family who puts a blind here every year for hunting season, and his name is Bennett. The first clip was of a small buck that came through. The second clip is of a raccoon. First time we've seen a raccoon in this area. I do plan to put a guard pro out here near the stump that he's walking by right now to try to catch the weasel up close and personal. This is a new 10-point buck that's appeared. He's not the same 10-pointer that we saw 2 weeks ago at Bennett's Blind, and he's not the 10-pointer that we saw last week at Behind Bog. I think that this is the same 10-pointer that I saw at the Way Down about a month ago, and I think that based on his tine structure, he may also be the buck that I saw in Velvet at the pit pond over the summer. It doesn't really matter what buck he is, but I do think that we've got probably 4 or 5 10-pointers on the property up back, and he's another great example, although a little bit smaller in body size than the previous one. The next clip we're going to see is Behind Bog, and we're going to see two small bucks, not small, but young bucks. They come in, they sniff around the area. They One of them does this really cool thing where he tosses his head and kind of, I think he's scenting the ground. I think he's trying to get scent up off the ground and get it deep into his nasal cavity. Um, I have not seen a doe in this area for over a week, so I don't think they're necessarily picking up doe scent unless it's old doe scent or if it's wafting from somewhere. But there definitely has only been bucks here for this past week. They do the same thing when they come in every time. They walk into this little clearing. They love that little white oak tree that he's kind of nipping at right now. I think this video is fantastic because you can see how shiny his nose is. You can see all of these very fine details of his body structure. You can see his brisket, and you can see the wrinkling in his neck. I think it's interesting that his neck is nowhere near as big as the big buck that came through here last week. Luckily, our cameras have full batteries this time, and these clips are not 2 seconds long. This is where he does that thing where he kind of tosses his head up and down at the same time of moving his jaw. And I think it's a scenting behavior, but I'm not entirely certain. I am not an expert on deer behavior. I just love seeing it, and I guess I also like making guesses. Later on in these clips, you'll see in the very far background, kind of middle of the frame towards the left, you're going to see a pair of eyes flash out. And that's going to be another buck that's kind of hiding out in the scrub brush that's probably up to his shoulders at least. He waits for this buck to leave, and then he kind of comes in. Both of these bucks also were seen walking up the road. This guy right here is heading towards an area where you might see the blue tarp. You can tell the bucks apart really nicely because of their tine structure. The does are much more difficult. Sometimes with the does, I only can be like, oh, well, that's the twins' mama, or there is one distinguishing fawn out there. It's because he had a couple of abscesses, and I call him Lumpy. So, but the does are very hard to tell. We do have one other doe that's kind of blocky shaped, and she looks like she might be an older doe. And I think that I do see the same doe on camera frequently, and that's her. I love how close these guys get to the camera. We actually moved the camera a few weeks ago, and I'm really glad we did because before we were getting good shots, but in this position, they almost come directly up to the camera. So, and they tend to stay stationary here because they're doing all kinds of sniffing. And I like that because we get a really good view of them. We get to see things that we don't normally do when they're walking by very quickly or if they're running past. We haven't seen the eyeballs yet, but we may see them on this next clip. Or I might have missed the eye. Oh, there they are. Is that them? Yeah, see some eyeballs out back there behind this buck? You'll see those come out, and then the next clip will be a different buck that appears in the clearing right there. That's the other one. You can see that his antlers are very different than the other one. And it's just interesting because they're kind of heading off in an area that we actually just placed in our tacticam. We haven't got any hits on the tacticam yet, but we know they're out there because there was a ton of poop. This is a new spot that I set a camera, and these all happened on October 30th and the 31st. So there was a grassy spot. It looked like there was all kinds of trampling on it, and I put this camera up, and I'm so glad I did because look at how close this doe gets. I almost want to whisper because I feel like she can hear me. She's so close. But she gets so close to the camera, you can see her eyelashes, you can see her pupils, you can see her fur, how densely packed her fur is. This is a really special shot right here, and I adore it. This was yesterday morning, just a couple hours before I checked the cameras. Not a lot of activity, but that was worth it. This was just directly after the doe was there. This is a small buck that comes in. It looks like he's taken a couple of big mouthfuls of something. It's got to be the grass because there's nothing else to eat there. He doesn't linger too long before the camera. Take special note, this is the October 31st at 7 o'clock in the morning. And he kind of flags his tail and trots off. Now, this next clip is going to be of a place we call the creek. It is literally about 100 yards to the north of the site that we just saw. And this is also at 7 o'clock in the morning. And this is, I'm going to guess he's a spike horn, but he may be a four-pointer or a three-pointer. And he bounces across the creek. I love that. It's so cute. This is um, a camera that my father set way back behind my mother's house. So it's not like in her backyard. It's back behind a bunch of accessory buildings, and it's pushed up against the woods. It's kind of near our Charles's Bar location. But we see a doe and a fawn come out. They just kind of graze through the grasses here. It's a nice calm spot. This it's just grassy. There's just nothing else here. And I imagine that they probably feel fairly safe because it's right next to the house. I'm sure they can see the house. What I find interesting about these particular clips is that in about two or three clips from here, we're going to see the doe, and she right there. Do you see her tail is straight up like that? Normally, when I see does like flagging an alert, they've got their tail flared out. Hers really isn't flared. It's kind of closed up, but it's just sticking straight up. The other time I've seen this is when they're pooping or peeing. But because she does this in three separate clips, I don't really think that she's pooping that entire time. And I don't think that we just managed to catch her pooping in three separate clips because these are all kind of back to back to back to each other. So I'm not sure. My father says it's because there might have been a buck nearby and she was giving him a good whiff of herself. Don't know. I think that this one right here, we're going to see her tail up again, but it might be the next one. These clips, there's only two more of these clips. There was one clip that I actually deleted because it was just, you only saw her, just the very top of her back, but she had her tail straight up in that one too. Yeah, right there. There she is again a few minutes later, and she's got her tail straight up. And I just think it's very interesting. I don't really know what she's doing. Usually, also, you can see little plops if they're pooping. So, don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I just love seeing cool behaviors like this because, it's special. This next clip is of a raccoon heading up my critter cam up at it's called Rock Road. And the next one I'm going to be quiet for. This is a bobcat. And look, in the back part of the frame, it's another bobcat. It has its mouth open and it's doing something while the other one plays with the camera. Boom! Pounces. I just love that. And let's watch it again in slow motion. I just love these kitties. This is a site called the Scrape Site, and I call it this because a couple weeks ago we found just this entire area that this buck deer had decimated with his horn or antlers. I'm sorry, I keep calling them horns. Um, you can see all these trees in the background, and they kind of have like bright white areas. That's because the bark's all been rubbed off them. put this camera up there thinking that we were going to get scrape video. We did not. We got possum. This new location is the road. It is basically a kind of connector trail from the blue tarp to the wood yard. It's kind of at the base of my property, and it's just a frequented place by deer. Just they always pass through here. I think they feel fairly protected. The road's not really wide. It's really easy traveling, and they just kind of walk back and forth, kind of like a deer highway. Does, fawns, and this week have been a lot of bucks. I don't know if you noticed with that doe right there, but she's got little bumps all over her. I think that she's covered in ticks because the ticks are bad. Bad, bad. My husband and I went out yesterday to set the tacticam, and we came in, and I think I picked like 16 or 17 little tiny deer tick nymphs off me. This buck is traveling back through at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you see him again come back down through at 6:37 a.m. And this is also the one that we had caught at the bog site. So, I mean, he's just kind of milling around in this area, back and forth, back and forth. This is, I believe, a different buck. He exits into the woods right here as opposed to continuing down the trail. And this is another, this is the I don't know, we kind of think that she might be an older doe. We've never really seen her with a fawn. She has a distinct body shape. She's very deep in the chest, which makes her stand out over all the other does that look more like this one. She's just really compact, and I don't know, there's something different about her, but we see her very, very often. And this is at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is kind of cool too. This is a fawn coming down through, and I don't know if we see him or her with a doe, but yeah, it looks like we don't. This is the tree, and it's the only clip we got this week, and it was of a real big coyote whipping across the screen. Next series of video clips is the woodyard, and it's a new camera that we set up last week. It's an area that connects back up to the road camera and the blue tarp camera, and we just found an unholy amount of deer poop here. And there was so many tracks in this area that it looked like there was like deer fights or scuffles or like some sort of convention going on. So we put this camera here, and we got a doe and a fawn, and we did get a buck. It wasn't as much traffic as I was expecting to get based on the amount of tracks and the amount of activity that it looked like there was. But we probably missed that, and they've kind of moved to a different area, or they've changed their habits because of deer hunting season coming on. But I think this little sequence of the doe and fawn are very cute. Um, these guys actually continue on behind the camera up to my house where they had destroyed my elderberry, and they come out in the evenings and they kind of hang out by my greenhouse and look for things to eat. But lately they've been eating black oil sunflower seeds that I've been leaving out. So who knows? They'll pretty much eat anything. The clips are getting ready to wrap up. I wanted to encourage you all to like and subscribe to our channel, share with your friends. Our goal is to have 500 followers and subscribers by the end of the year. We are on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube under the same name, Backyard Wildlife Maine. And we really appreciate your support. It makes it worth going out here and spending the time to get the videos. And we hope that you find the beauty in it that we do, because this has been a great pleasure for us, and a lovely project between my brother and I, who's in London, and myself, who's here in Maine. It's been a lovely experience, and we hope to continue it indefinitely. So thank you so much for supporting us.